Good afternoon, it's Lee Cassidy from Tactile Technology, and it's one of my regular weekly sessions where we have a guest in the hot seat. So we learn all about them, their journey through life, their journey through their careers, and what they're doing now, and we promote their business at the end. Let's also find out what the best meal they ever had, and also what the most adventurous thing they have as well. So let's kick off. We've got our guest, Adam. So, Adam, how are you?
Hello, Lee. Thank you very much for having me along today.
No problem at all. So we always start at the beginning, so because it's a very good place to start, as would have been told in some musical in the past. But tell us about your life. So where you grew up, your life when you were a child, what you enjoyed at school, a bit about your parents, maybe what they did for a living. So we've got that base, that foundation of where you started from, and then we'll move on from there.
Well, I grew up in Streatley in Sutton Coldfield, West Midlands. My dad was a long-distance lorry driver, driving the big articulated lorries.
So was he away a lot then? If he was a long distance,
he spent a lot of his time like having nights out and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
really kind of missed him. When I was a young boy. My mum worked hard looking after the house, doing the housework, also working as a cleaner for a local teacher. But unfortunately, by the time I was 12, they'd both actually passed away.
Oh, that's a challenge for you at age 12. I'm sure that was really difficult for you.
It was, Lee, but I always try and find a positive in everything, and in many ways, I think he taught me a lot about resilience and overcoming adversity.
So who brought you up from age 12 then?
So I moved in then with my grandparents. Which was quite difficult for them because they'd already brought up 3 children themselves. And I went to live with them. My granddad.
You moved? Was it far to move?
No, not too far. Only about a mile.
Okay, yeah, local area then.
That was a challenge in itself because my granddad was a military man. He'd fought in the Second World War, and I think he thought I was one of his privates. So yeah.
So he had you on parade every morning, did he?
Yeah. I couldn't have too late at night, going to bed because he'd have me up nice and early in the morning.
Yeah. What time was Reveille then with him?
What time? Sorry.
Reveille, because that's what the military call at the time you get up in the morning. Reveille, you get blow the trumpet and Reveille. No, yeah, we used to get up at 5:45 was our normal time when I was in because I was in the military for 20 years. So Reveille was normally 5:45.
I think it all depended on whether I'd been out the night before and
okay.
because he was strict. So quite often found myself like creeping up the stairs late at night when I've been out with my friends or whatever, and I've been out past my time to be in.
Was his hearing any good though? Could he hear you creeping at that time?
Yeah, and then he'd be waking me up, especially early.
Okay.
Even though it was the weekend.
Yeah, that's it. So you lived with them until what age?
I was 17.
Yeah.
My sister who was just 2 years older than me, she'd actually moved into her own property, and I went to live with her, as a lodger. But that was kind of a break from my nan and granddad then at the time, so they encouraged that.
Yeah. What age were they at that age? That point though, they must have been getting on a bit.
They must have been in their 80s.
Yeah, that's it. So it must have been a challenge for them and for you, to go through that process. So what about schooling then? So, where did you go to school? What kind of stuff do you get up to?
My school was at the time a Streatley Comprehensive School in Streatley. Of course, because my parents passing away, I missed a few years of school. Sorry, not a few years, a few months of school.
Yeah.
Because obviously I needed time away to overcome that challenge.
Yeah, you need to process what happened. Yeah, it's very difficult, isn't it?
But saying that, I did enjoy school and passed my GCSEs. Maths.
Any particular subjects you liked? Any particular activities? Were you very sporty?
I was mainly kind of into maths and English at school. So the two key subjects really.
That's unusual because I'm quite scientifically focused and I'm good at maths, but English was a real challenge for me. And you tend to find people are either one or the other. They are good at maths or they're good at English, not both. So you're quite unusual to actually be good at both of them.
Yeah, and as well, sports I enjoyed running, cross country running. So
yeah. I say it's quite. I think I used to like things like that because it got you away from the school for a bit. But it sounds like you enjoyed being at school, didn't you? So it wasn't a problem for you.
Yeah, I did quite enjoy it actually. Yeah.
So what did you plan to do with this then? So you got this maths and English. You're doing your GCSEs and pass those. Do you have any particular plans or what you're going to do with yourself?
Well, at the time I was at school, there was three different avenues I may have gone down really, because my father had been a long distance lorry driver. I had considered, following on doing that.
Yeah.
My granddad, being a military man, was obviously, interested in me joining the army.
Yeah.
But my own interest really was in finance,
Yeah.
So I kind of left school at the age of 16. But I had a few different kind of manual jobs then. And I think you need that time after you leave school to just really take the pressure off and enjoy your life, and go out with your friends and that kind of thing. But
it's a decompress type of thing, isn't it? And try and live a bit of life for a while.
That's it, yeah. It's freedom, isn't it? Because you're away from the ties of school. So it's time to enjoy your freedom a little bit more then.
Yeah. So what kind of things did you do?
Well, mainly kind of going to the pub with my friends and
no, I meant you said you had a few like manual jobs. What kind of manual jobs?
Manual jobs, warehousing, factory work, that kind of thing. I've done some driving. I used to really enjoy van driving and that type of thing,
Yeah. Well, that might be the link back to your father and a long distance lorry driving. That might be why you like that, because you're in line, in sync with your father for a while.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So what happened after these, a few different, manual jobs? Where did you go from there?
So I spent a bit of time, and then I thought, really, I need to start looking at my future and getting involved with a career.
Yeah.
So I started at college doing night school, studying accountancy with the AAT.
Okay. How long did that take you then?
Well, in total, I was doing 3 years of night school, but because it wasn't nice, it was sometimes tiring because I might be at college 3 nights of the week.
Yeah, and you'd worked as well during the day, I assume, as well.
Yeah. But I was kind of going to college with students that were already working in the finance field.
Yeah.
And what I soon came to realise is that it suited me, and I was good at as accountancy and bookkeeping, double entry bookkeeping, that kind of thing. And some of the students,
as we're talking about it, can you just explain to people the difference between accountancy and bookkeeping? Because they are slightly different, aren't they? But I think a lot of people roll the two into one. So, give us a picture of what bookkeeping entails and what the difference between bookkeeping and accountancy is.
It all originates from double entry bookkeeping. So the first thing you learn is kind of your debits and your credits, and that kind of thing, expenses and income and assets and liabilities and that kind of thing. And that all forms your kind of double entry bookkeeping. Now, when you're going into accountancy or bookkeeping, you need to understand double entry bookkeeping to begin with.
Yeah.
Where accountancy veers off is later on, it's using them figures to actually forecast businesses going forward or companies going forward, whereas bookkeeping is more historical. With accounting and accountancy, that's more where you get involved with tax submission and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So looking at the liabilities for the business from a tax perspective and how that would be factored off. Looking at I can say it's quite interesting you said that the historic, because it is really, if you think about bookkeeping, it's like today backwards, isn't it? What we've spent up to today, what did we spend in the past? Whereas accountancy is looking forward. Let's predict what we're going to do over the next quarter, next year. Let's then look at the tax liabilities on all of that. How are we going to make sure it's all going to work together? So it is a bit different. Coming back to the double entry. I remember doing double entry in books when there were no computers, because I don't know if you've ever done that. Have you ever done it actually in the double entry books?
When I started in the late 90s, it was all kind of paper based. Registered.
So you had a book, and it did have a line, two red lines in the middle between the two sides of the double entry, didn't it?
And the old cash books, yeah. Of course, it's all changed now. It's all on computer software.
Everything's computerized nowadays, isn't it? So it's quite interesting that that you started that point in time when it was still very much a manual process. Because I don't think people nowadays could actually deal with that manual process anymore, because it'd be so difficult to understand where you are, what your position is. Looking at just some numbers on paper, whereas using a computer program, it makes it so much easier, doesn't it, to predict things, set budgets, and see where you forecast against budgets and things. So it's a lot different to how it used to be. So what happened at the end of you finishing that night school period, that 3 years?
Well, I was looking for employment really, at that time.
Yeah.
Wrote many paper based again. Wrote many handwritten letters to kind of accountancy firms and finance firms and that kind of thing. The trouble was at the time was obviously I'd come from a manual background, and for many of these hundreds of letters that I'd written, the owner of the finance company or the accountancy firm, that they kind of wanted proof of work experience.
That's the thing. It's a bit like the chicken and the egg, isn't it? Which comes for, how do you get work experience unless somebody gives you a job to do experience? Especially when you've first qualified and you've got your accountancy or bookkeeping qualifications. How do you actually show any experience if you've never been given an opportunity of a job?
No, it was very difficult at the time, I ended up having to come away from night school after putting all that input in for 3 years. I ended up having to come away from night school because the level 4 stuff that I was studying at the time and progressing through really well, they wanted you to actually write a project on the accountancy system that you was operating at work.
Which you weren't at work, so you couldn't.
I don't think they actually realised that people that were in, not actually involved in the field would be progressing that far without the work experience.
Yeah, but it shows that you had the capability, though, if you got that to that level, even though you weren't actually working within a firm at that point in time.
Yeah.
So how did you deal with that then? Did you just go off and find alternative work, or did you stay where you were at the time?
Well, it became a busy time in my life because my attention got diverted in one way because my son was actually born.
Yeah.
And my wife Sadie, she was already involved in a career, and she was doing well for herself, working within the council and schools and that kind of thing in safeguarding. So what we decided between us is that I'd actually become a stay-at-home dad and work between the school hours so I could be there. It was really important for me, actually, because I
Well,
lost
that's,
my dad.
if we look at reality, is somebody's got to do it, and it was always down to the wife and mother that did it in the past. But should it be? It shouldn't really matter who does it, as long as someone's looking after the child or children, isn't it?
No, it was really important for me, having only spent so many years with my dad, and that through them years he was
Yeah,
spending so many nights out, to be around our Connor, my son Connor, and be able
yeah.
to pick him up from school and take him to school in the mornings, and for him to be able to spend that time with me,
Yeah, that must have been great to get that connection with your son, and grow up together, with it. It must have been very good.
So
Do you have
yeah,
still very strong ties with Connor?
yeah. He has moved out through
Okay.
the pandemic, which kind of give us the opportunity to turn his bedroom into a work, an office, so we could work from home.
Did you change the locks as well so he can't get back?
No, I think he has actually still got a key, so we need to be careful there.
Yeah, so you might come back to go in your office one day and he's laid on the floor or across the desks.
But yeah, at that time, Luke, kind of driving jobs and warehousing, that kind of
Yeah,
fit around
things that you could do to work around, dropping Connor off and picking him up and looking after him. Yeah. So I know you had to do some work with your father-in-law as well. Was that to do with illness or something?
Oh, well, what happened is, it always kind of frustrated me that I wanted to get back into accountancy or bookkeeping. As I kind of grew up, and he became an age that he could be independent to himself, walk home from
Yeah.
school, and it was all right to be left at home at school. At home.
Yeah.
Then my father-in-law took ill.
Yeah.
He had a major operation, and a lot of the time he was in and out of a wheelchair.
Yeah. So he needed someone to support him as well.
So really, he needed a carer. He didn't want to go into care. He wanted a carer. He was proud, of the home that he'd built around himself.
Yeah.
And actually, at that time, what me and my wife Sadie did was we moved into his home so that we could be around him and I could care for him in the day.
Yeah.
Now, during this time, because he needed me in the middle of the day, I was actually working as a school minibus driver, taking kids with special needs, SEN children, to school and back, which I really enjoyed, because I felt like I was serving a purpose in the community doing that.
It sounds, and it is, challenging, doing that as well. So that would have been early morning and then late afternoon. So you'd be there most of the day with your father-in-law.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did that long go on for? So before you could then, I can say it sounds terrible, but you always get to a point where then you need to move on and do your own thing.
Well, what happened is, unfortunately, my father-in-law passed away in the March of 2019.
Okay.
That enabled me to have that time to concentrate on myself.
Yeah.
And what I did is, I was still minibus driving till the start of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Then COVID struck, and of course, everyone got locked down.
So there's no need for minibus drivers to drive children into school because they weren't going to school.
No, and it would have been, it would have been something that I suppose would have seemed quite dangerous at the time.
Yeah, true. Close proximity in a minibus.
Yeah, for the children to actually congregate onto a minibus anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I found myself in a position where I was at home then, and lockdown is boring for so many people. I think I'd swept the loft out, all the dust out the loft, rearrange the loft.
So you'd done every job that under the sun you could think of, and you got to the point where there was nothing else to do.
I'd gone around the house, written myself a jobs list, completed all my jobs, But yeah, I happened to be in the loft and I came across my old accountancy books. And, you know,
That sparked an idea then.
you start flicking through these books and you think, you know, I need to really spend this time now. While everyone's having, you know, probably a negative time through the pandemic, I thought, no, it's not going to be for me. I'm going to turn this period of time into a positive, and then re-qualify. So that's what I did. I decided to upskill myself at that point.
So how long did it take you to re-qualify?
Well, I went back and because I'd studied the AAT to begin with, I found a local training company that provided online training from home, studying their stuff for the AAT. I actually completed the level 3 course in 3 months. For many people,
quick. That's quick.
People,
Yeah, but it must have been still retained then, all that knowledge from the past then, which is good.
Definitely, yeah.
And what did you do at that point? Did you, say, I know where you are now, but did you go straight into starting off Dilloway Business Services, or did you do anything prior to that?
No, I actually spent them 3 months with studying the AAT. What I found out after was that the ICB, the Institute of Certified Bookkeepers, actually they kind of provide more support for the independent self-employed bookkeeper.
Yeah.
So, and their course, they kind of they had more material within the course, but they allowed me an exemption route from the AAT to the ICB.
Yeah.
So I kind of transferred over and qualified with the ICB as well. So I could have actually had letters after my name with the AAT and the ICB, but I realised that would have actually been longer than my name itself.
Yes, definitely.
So I decided to take on the letters and become licensed with the ICB.
Yeah. And did they, say, I would have thought if you're just doing traditional accountancy in a practice, all you do is you do accountancy. You don't think of how to run a business and all the other things, because that's done outside of that for you. How to, find customers, how to, deal with customers and all that piece. So I would have thought, that's something you gain with this new training and new support.
Yeah, the ICB, that brilliant for people setting up in practice as well. That they provide YouTube videos, branch meetings, all that kind of thing. So the support really was there for me to set up my own bookkeeping practice.
Yeah. So when did you kick off the bookkeeping practice?
I started in January of the year 2021. And there was a couple of people, a couple of accountants, and a more senior ICB member that kind of supported me into the business.
A bit like a mentor to help you get off the ground.
Yeah. I think anyone in business, I recommend, taking on a coach or a mentor.
Yeah.
Because I think it progresses you faster.
Yeah, and also they've seen the things that you might come up in the future, and they can give you the right way to approach it rather than making the mistakes if you don't know what to do about it, because you'll have made the mistakes in the past themselves and know the right approach to take.
Well, there's that many different rules in the finance game, HMRC. That if you try and read their website, there's that many different rules and regulations that.
It's a bit like my SME sec things I'm doing each day, where I talk about security in plain English, not Klingon. Actually going onto HMRC's website, it's a bit like reading Klingon as well, isn't it? The way that they actually put, an English language in such a way that you can't understand it.
Yeah, there's two different elements to having a bookkeeping practice as well. You've got the manual stuff that you've learned through the time that you've been a student. But then, in the practice of it, you need to know all the extra bits that HMRC expect of you as well. Which documents to keep, what's acceptable to keep, how long to keep your documents for, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Because a lot of people take the view that an accountant's about numbers, counting and things, but the most of it's actually looking at the legal requirements for a business from a financial perspective, isn't it? And how HR, view things.
Many people think if they're good at maths, they'll be good at accountancy, and
Yeah.
that's partly how I started as well.
Yeah.
What I soon realised with bookkeeping is it's mainly methodology,
Yeah.
and processes.
Yeah, process and procedures are a big thing in anything to do with business these days, aren't they? Be able to follow a particular workflow and things that need to be done in what order to get the right outcome at the end.
That's it.
Yeah, definitely. So how has it gone then? So you kicked it off a little while ago. How has it grown? What are you doing different that's generating you more business? How have you gone about finding business?
Well, I spent the first 3 or 4 months as a sole trader in practice.
Yeah.
And then in July, my wife Sadie, she realised that I was enjoying being in business. She was working at a school at the time, but she actually took voluntary redundancy. They were making cutbacks. She took voluntary redundancy, and she decided to join me. And we set up. I moved from Dilloway Bookkeeping Services to Dilloway Business Services, which actually covered the bookkeeping side of the business. But also, Sadie decided to offer HR to the side to it, which she got a background in.
Especially small businesses, accountancy is one thing that you always need to have, but a lot of times they don't have any knowledge or understanding about HR, how to recruit people, how to manage people, how to deal with situations with people. So Sadie and I have spoken recently about a couple of things, and one of the biggest issues is when you're having difficulty with employees through mental illness, through physical illness, and many other things, and how to deal with that, but also to help those individuals deal with the stresses of life, especially the way we are at the moment. So I think some of the things that you and Sadie are doing are really important.
So we like to see ourselves as kind of support, an outsourced support to employers and business owners. With the finance and the legal side of it, but so that they don't actually have to employ them direct. And then pay all your statutory sick pay, your holidays, your employer's national insurance, all that kind of thing. So we're offering good value there.
Yeah, definitely. So, what would one of your clients say about you? When you've been working with them for 6 to 12 months, what kind of responses would you get if I went along and asked them? Tell us a bit about Adam and what he's been doing for your business.
Well, it's first of all, I think it's about the honesty of it.
Yeah.
That's what I've been told. The first thing that shines across is the upfront honesty. Secondly, it's going out my way to, and I know Sadie does that on the other side of the business, going out of my way to actually understand the client and find the best way. Every client is slightly different.
Because I think that's the case, isn't it? You need to really understand the customer and their business to be able to support them effectively.
But ultimately, it's about finding all about the business and what we can actually find in their costs to reduce their tax liability. And really claim back their expenses.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times that we don't get with using accountancy services advice at the time we need it. It tends to be afterwards. You could have done that, which is a bit pointless when you can't do it anymore because it's gone. Actually, somebody who's actually looking at things as you're going on, working alongside you, and then says, have you considered doing this, or there is a way you can do it like that. At the point in time when it actually will make an impact and help. I think it's quite important.
It's too late once the tax returns are actually submitted, because obviously the HMRC have got your money then, and they don't really want to refund you if they can help you.
And a lot of business, they assume all they see with an accountant or a bookkeeper is the transactional piece. At the end of the year, just going through and doing that tax return and submitting it, doing the tax, doing the accounts and put them into company's house. But there's a lot more to it than that, isn't there? There's that opportunity to understand, what kind of things you can do in the business to make it more effective, efficient for tax. The kind of things you can do around investing. Because there's lots of opportunities to invest some of the money you've made in such a way, like R&D and those kind of things, to actually improve the business, isn't there, as well? So
a lot of people, Lee, see bookkeepers as just somebody there to sort out their tax, and get their tax returns in. In many ways, it's about being able to show the picture of the business to potential investors. It might be suppliers that can offer certain credit terms, but obviously that they want to know whether the client is creditworthy.
And I think at this point in time, with things that are going on at the moment, you do really need to understand your credit risk and the risk of particular clients you might take on. It's going to be, at this point in time with costs rising and things, it's going to be the time you really need to understand that information, isn't it? Yeah, definitely. So, tell us a bit about the kind of stuff you're doing for customers at the moment. I'll put your LinkedIn, details up on the screen. So if anybody wants to, contact Adam, there's Adam's LinkedIn details. Also, if you want to have a look at the website, it's www.dillowaybk.co.uk. So you can actually go on there and contact Adam, but also have a look at the services and things that they're doing. So tell us, some key things that you can offer that you think will make the most impact for a small to medium organization, especially ones that are only starting out for the first time. And also, I assume because of your background and the work you've done, you can understand it, especially from a sole trader's perspective, the issues and the problems they have. So I think you're not doing it just from an accountant or bookkeeping's perspective. You've actually lived in their shoes as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I think for a lot of businesses they might not want a bookkeeper, so I'm actually offering training to business owners so that they can do their own bookkeeping.
Oh yeah, that would be good.
I'm working on a bit of a training course that I can deliver.
What's the old adage there? Is it you can give a man a fish and he can eat for a day? You teach a man to fish and he can eat for life, isn't it, or something?
That's it.
Yeah. So I think that's a really good approach. Good approach.
And also, some business owners they might not want to give somebody their finances all the time. They don't always want to show someone how well their business is performing.
Or not as well. Yeah.
I've just been approached by a training company as well to train their apprentices.
Yeah.
My thought there is in the next 2 years, they're making tax digital for income tax. This will kind of relate to most businesses within the UK. That they'll need to be using digital software to submit their income tax. So,
because the VAT moved over, didn't it, to digital not long back? So a lot of people are now having to submit everything digitally for VAT.
That's just happening now. That is.
Yeah. So I think we started doing it last year, but there was like early entry for it, wasn't there? But I think it's mandated from this April, isn't it, onwards? As in tomorrow, even.
It's just starting now. Yeah. It did get postponed a few times, so they was trying to get early starters involved with it, to kind of test pilot it. And that.
Yeah, but I think that's a really important thing to help others. So work to train apprentices in this. I think is a great thing, because you're helping them get off the ground as well.
Well, yeah, at one time, when I first started, my idea was to do the bookkeeping and then kind of go to university and progress into being an accountant. I think, if I did that now, university, I'll be almost on retirement age by the time I'm qualified. So what I'd really like to do now is work with apprentices and kind of try and build the next layer of bookkeepers. Help help serve businesses within the next 2 years' time. And give, because I didn't get that opportunity myself.
Yeah,
when
it's
I
good. It's good
started.
to give back, isn't it? When
Yeah.
when you didn't get the opportunity yourself to help others is a great way to do it as well. Yeah, and there's a lot of people out there don't have the background to be able to go off to university and then go into accounting. They don't have the funds, they don't have the background for it, they don't have the financial and also support in other ways. They need to maybe work to be able to support the family. So it's not always open to everybody to do that. So having the alternative of an apprenticeship and actually learn how to do bookkeeping, but then be able to progress later maybe into accounting if that's their choice, I think is a great thing, isn't it?
I think sometimes it's about who you know as well.
Yeah.
If you've got a family member who knows an accountant or somebody within the finance team, and they can get you in, that kind of helps to progress you forward.
Yeah, but not everybody's in that position, are they? So
Unfortunately,
it makes it a challenge. Yeah. So anything else you want to tell us about Dilloway Business Services, bookkeeping things, before we move on to our final two questions?
No, I think people have got the website and the LinkedIn. I'm always open for a conversation on the phone or a Zoom one-to-one. See how I can help.
We may as well introduce the BNI bit as well, because you've started using BNI to network and find business through that. So how did you come to that? Was that something you knew about before you started doing BNI?
The BNI, somebody spoke about it at an ICB branch meeting.
Yeah.
Further afield, it wasn't in the regional BNI, that I'm part of. But they spoke that well about BNI that I thought, I must go and visit, give it a shot. And it has worked for me. I've received return on investment from BNI.
Yeah, but it's not only just getting work; it's also having some people around you that are like-minded and can support you as well, both physically, morally, and sometimes emotionally. It's not always that financial support you need. It's just having other people to talk about when things are difficult and when things are good. Someone to talk about as well.
Yeah. I also think BNI offers other things such as, confidence and building your own character, because you're in that position where you're talking to the business owners, and it has definitely grown me since.
Okay, good. I'm glad it's working for you. And so we know each other now through it, because I did it many years ago, and I've gone back to it recently and joined Ambassadors where you are, which is an online one. So it's in line with what we're doing today. We're doing an online interview, and we're from working together on online BNI as well. So quite interesting. So we're coming on then. So I did talk about these two questions, didn't I, at the beginning? So tell us a bit about the best meal you've ever had. Where was it? What was it, and why was it the best meal you ever had?
You did ask me those two questions, Lou, and it took me a lot of thinking about it. And I think in the way of a meal, it would have to be a Mother's Day. Me and my son took my wife to Gurkha 1816, and they're based in Winsbury. And they kind of sell Indian and Malaysian food. But it was the first time I tried Malaysian food, and
because that's it. A lot of people have Indian food, especially around the Birmingham area. There's masses of it, isn't there? Different restaurants, Indian food around, and takeaways. But Malaysian and slightly different. We were talking before we started about Indonesian. I love Indonesian food because I lived in Germany on the border with Holland, and we used to go to Indonesian restaurants but you find very few Indonesian restaurants in the UK. Now there was one in Studley for a while I used to go to, but you don't see it. So what made the meal? Was it the occasion? Was it the food? Was it the venue? What was the key thing you think that made that the best meal?
I think it was the occasion, but the taste of the food. When you go somewhere and the menu's there, but you just think, you can either play it safe and you can try something that you've tried before because you know that you like it, or you can just think, it's
throw caution to the wind and have something quite different.
Yeah. So I
Yeah,
tried
deep
something
fried
different.
locust.
It just really worked. Yeah, it was lovely.
Okay. Yeah. It's the food itself is like music. It's quite emotive, and it ties you to points in time in your life. When you've heard a particular piece of music, or you've eaten a specific food, it does tie you to points in your life, and I think it's very emotive, and that's why I asked the question. I always like to know what people have done. So the other one was, what's the most adventurous thing you've ever done?
Right. This goes back to when I was at school, and I used to enjoy my running.
Yeah.
And in 2017, Birmingham actually hosted a marathon. Well, for some reason, I've always admired people that have completed a marathon. So I thought,
well, it's a challenge, isn't it?
yeah, but I thought I'll give that a go. And it took a lot of training, running around the streets, 20 mile or whatever, around the streets, doing many laps of the local area. And I did actually manage to achieve the Birmingham Marathon. So I was proud.
How much training did you have to put in advance, and how many weeks or months?
Over a year.
A year.
Yeah,
that's a commitment. Spending a year training for one thing you're going to do. What do you do? About 2.5 hours? Is it 3 hours?
It's 3 hours, 3.5 hours sometimes.
Yeah. Because that's a real commitment to say, no, I'm going to do something for the next year, to train myself to do something that's going to take 3.5 hours. Yeah, once.
For me, Lee, it was kind of that also led from my route into business, because I realised that if you want something bad enough, you
you'll work for it.
You can actually achieve it.
Yeah, that is, if you consider what marathon's like, it's like climbing a mountain, isn't it? Because it goes on and on and on, and you get to the point where your energy starts to dissipate. Psychologically, it's a challenge. It's a real challenge, both physically and psychologically, towards the end. Because that last few miles must really burn. It must really be a real challenge to get to the end. So you really need to drive yourself on, don't you, to get to the end?
Especially because they included a really steep hill, mile 17.
Great, yeah, that's great, isn't it? You want it to be all downhill, really, don't you? Not uphill.
You sooner get the uphills out the way early, definitely.
Yeah. That's it. Well, thanks ever so much for joining us today. I'll just put up Adam's website again. So Adam's website, www.dillowaybk.co.uk. And if you want to catch him on LinkedIn, we've got linkedin.in/Dilloway again. So contact him through that, and hopefully you'll be able to do some work together. So, but thanks ever so much for joining me today. It's great to speak to you and learn a bit more. We've spoken in the past, but I didn't know all the intricacies of what you've done in your life, and it's really interesting to learn more about you and where you've been. And I think we're all a product of our lives and our experiences. So the things that happen through our life, mold us into the people we are. And I think if we have a very easy life, we're not always that conditioned to be able to cope with things in the future. And having an upbringing like you've had, losing your parents early, being brought up by grandparents, and having some of the challenges you've had, I think that makes you a very different individual. I think makes you very strong, and based on what you've said about the marathon, definitely a hard-working person. And I think that rings a lot of good bells for me about working with someone if they can really challenge themselves like that. So thanks ever so much for joining us. And if you want to stay on after we've finished, and we'll just have a catch up with things. But for everybody else, don't forget we're still doing our the SME sec. So I didn't want to do on today. I didn't get a chance to get it all scheduled, but tomorrow we're actually on to number 10, step 10 of the National Cybersecurity 10 steps for a more secure business. And we're talking about home workers, and mobile workers. And this has become a real issue for a lot of businesses, because the last 2 years we've got a lot more home workers. So it's become a real challenge to actually look after them securely. So we're going to talk through some of the key areas to think about when you're trying to secure home workers and mobile workers tomorrow. And then on Monday, we're going to wrap things back up and do a summary of what all the last 10 we've done over the last 2 weeks. So please join me 12:30 tomorrow to 12:45. Security in plain English, not Klingon. Right, thanks ever so much for everybody, and hopefully we'll see you all again soon. Bye then.